Coming up tonight, Major League Baseball with the Cincinnati Reds. It'll be the Reds against the Atlanta Braves this evening at Riverfront Stadium in my 35th game scored of this 1983 baseball season. This is DVP reporting on Wednesday, September the 14th. My last game penciled in was 10 days ago, the Reds against the Cardinals at St. Louis on September the 4th, and the Cardinals won that ball game. And Cincinnati won the first two games of that series, and that was the first stop on a four-city, nine-game road trip for the Reds. And despite winning the first two, Cincinnati finished under 500 on that trip, going 4-5, and then they came back home to start up a five-game homestand against Atlanta and Houston last night, and they started it off on the right foot. Behind the continued magnificent pitching of right-hander Mario Soto, Cincinnati shut down the Atlanta Braves 6-0 on a three-hitter. That is one of 7 games I have to recap here in the front part of this cassette. I'll get to that beautiful performance by Soto in just a moment. I've got some spectacular statistics to read off regarding the potential 1983 National League Cy Young Award winner. And speaking of Mario Soto, you gotta say that he's got a legitimate shot at winning that award, although he pitches for a last-place ball club. Really, that makes his stats even more impressive. And he has just been some kind of pitcher. He gets his 16th win of the year last evening. That's the most by any Reds pitcher since Tom Seaver won that many 4 years ago in the division-winning 1979 season. What a pitcher he's been. I'll take a look at his stats a little bit later on, but right now let's go back to the ball game of Monday afternoon, September the 5th. That was the first of a brief two-game series, Reds at San Francisco, and the Giants won it, and it was really a tough luck loss. The Reds had 5 hits and out-hit them by 3. The Reds had a 2-hit complete game from rookie right-hander Jeff Russell, but he made one mistake pitch, really, in that ball game. And that was a home run ball he threw up in the 8th inning to Dave Bergman for the game-winning hit. And that was only their second hit and their final hit of that ball game. Russell had a no-hitter through 7 innings. He took a no-hitter into the 8th inning. He has done just a fine job for the Reds this season. His ERA is just barely over 2 right now. That his record is only at 500 as he loses his second straight decision. He's now 2-2, but gets his second complete game of the season, and it's on a 2-hitter. Really a tough luck loss for Mr. Russell. The Reds got a run in the first inning, and then a run in the 4th, and the Giants got 1 run without the benefit of a base hit in the bottom of the 4th inning. And that was an unearned run because of a passed ball by rookie catcher Steve Christmas. And then they had the 2-run 8th inning. There was a leadoff double by Joel Youngblood, who was the star of the game, with Joe Nuxhall after that ball game. That was the first hit after 7 innings of no-hit ball for Russell. Youngblood had a double and then came in immediately on a 2-run home run off the bat of Dave Bergman. And for Bergman, his second game-winning RBI of the year, and that is his 5th home run of the season. That was a pinch-hit 2-run homer. He was batting for rookie catcher Johnny Rabb. And he took one deep to right field, and that made it a 3-2 San Francisco lead. The Reds could not get anything in their final trip against relievers Lavelle and Minton. The latter gets his 19th save, Greg Minton, as Lavelle goes 1/3, gives up a hit and walks a batter, and then Minton 2/3 to nail it down. And Fred Brining was the starting pitcher, and he is the winning pitcher. It's his 9th win against 11 losses. He went 8 strong innings, allowed just 2 runs, 4 hits, walked 3, struck out 7, and hit a batter, Ronnie Oster. So a tough loss for the Reds, their second straight on that road trip. The Giants had 3 runs on 2 hits with 1 error and left 2 men on base. The Reds 2 runs, 5 hits, no errors, and stranded 7. 2-hour, 19-minute ball game, and the attendance was 12,446 paid. They had 15,146 total for that Labor Day ball game at Candlestick Park. Come from behind win for the Giants. They do it on only 2 hits, and they came in a row, a double by Youngblood, home run by Bergman. They only had 22 official at-bats in that ball game, but they win the ball game 3-2. But some consolation is that Russell does get the complete game, but still, a loss is attached to it. RBIs for the Reds, Dwayne Walker and Steve Christmas. Christmas's first major league run batted in. And then on Tuesday, September the 6th, following the afternoon ball game on Labor Day, the Reds and Giants hooked up in a night ball game, and the Reds clobbered them 11-1 on a 6-hitter thrown by 2 different pitchers, right-handers Bruce Bereni and Rich Gale. Gale did a fine job in relief against his former team. He pitches very well against that ball club from whence he came. The Reds got him from the Giants, and that deal for Mike Vail this past January. Gale gets his first save as a Red, going 3 2/3 innings of 3-hit, 1-run relief. He walked a batter and struck out 4. And Bereni gets the win, his 7th of the year against 14 losses. A good outing for him. A three-hitter over the first 5 1/3. Gave up no runs, walked 7 batters, and struck out 3 batters. So he allowed 10 base runners, but no runs at all. And he was, well, really working in trouble the entire ball game, but 3 double plays really helped him. But he gets the win, his 7th, and Atlee Hammaker takes the loss. He went 5 innings, allowed 6 runs, only 2 of them earned, walked 2, struck out 2, and gave up 4 hits, and pitched into the 6th inning, and he hit a batter, Skeeter Barnes. His first time up in the major leagues, Barnes was hit by a pitch, and he was also hit later in the ball game with the bases loaded by Mark Calvert, a rookie pitcher for the Giants. So Skeeter Barnes hit by 2 pitches. He was without a hit in the game. A base hit, that is. He was 0 for 3, but he scored 1 and knocked in his first major league run, so a strange way to get his first RBI. Now, Christmas had his first RBI with a sacrifice fly the day before in that September 5th ball game. And now Skeeter, with the bases loaded, gets hit, and he drives in one of the Reds' 11 runs. The game-winning RBI went to Gary Ritas, his 10th of the year, and that is tops on the ball club. Dan Bellardello had a home run for the Reds. That's his 6th of the season, the first he's hit at a road park this season. And also Skeeter Barnes had a stolen base in that one, his first in the major leagues. That was his first major league appearance, by the way, as Barnes went out to play first base in that game. He was batting between Esaski and Bellardello, 2 other rookies on the Reds this season. They only had 4,009 on hand for that wrap-up to the 2-game series. The Reds end up splitting it. Only 4,009, and the paid crowd was worse than that. The weakest crowd this season at San Francisco, 3,562 paid. And the game took 10 minutes shy of 3 hours, 2:50 the game time. The Reds had 11 runs, 8 hits is all. 1 error and 8 men left on. They only out-hit the Giants by 2, but outscored them by 10. The Giants had 1-6-2 and left 9, hit into 3 double plays. So the Reds didn't have an abundance, really, of base hits, but made the most of the hits. And a couple of hit batsmen also. And some bases on balls in there also. The Reds received 9 walks and 2 hit batsmen from the quartet of pitchers that went out for San Francisco. Hammaker 5 innings, and Mark Calvert 1 1/3. He allowed 2 hits, 3 runs, 1 earned, walked 3. And then Randy Lurch, recently picked up from their AAA team. 1 2/3 for Lurch, who was earlier this year with the Expos. Gave up a hit, a run, walked 3, struck out 1, and then Reenie Martin came on for 1 inning, allowed a hit, a run, a walk, and struck out 2. And Hammaker, the loser, he's 10-9 now on the year. Bereni the win, and Gale the save. Ritas, Householder, Esaski, Bellardello, Barnes, and Foley had the Reds' RBIs, and Householder had 3 of the RBIs. Esaski had a pair. Bellardello knocked in 3 runs in the game, as he gets the only home run in that contest. So a big attack for the Reds and some good pitching. The Reds beat the Giants 11-1 to split that series and go 1 over at 3-2 at that time on the road trip. Then it's off to Los Angeles for the Reds. A 2-game series at Dodgers Stadium. That began on Wednesday night, September the 7th. The Dodgers won a thrilling 10-inning ball game that evening, as Tom Niedenfuhr came up with the victory in relief. He's now 8-2. He went an inning, allowed a hit, struck out a couple. Steve Howe 2 innings, and Jerry Royce, the starter, went 7 innings, allowed 6 hits, 3 runs, a walk, and struck out 5. Ben Hayes takes the loss. He served up a grand slam home run to the fine Los Angeles right fielder Mike Marshall. He's a second-year man. He was up for a while last season. He hits his 15th home run of the year. I think he's got 5 against the Reds, or 4 or 5 against Cincinnati. He hit a home run to almost straightaway center field in the bottom half of the 10th inning with 1 man out, and that gives the Dodgers the 7-3 triumph. And the crowd went wild at Dodger Stadium. A big win for L.A., as they are now in the hunt, of course, in first place, but just by a small margin over the Atlanta Braves. 48,663 were on their feet as Marshall stepped to the plate against Ben Hayes and yanked one out of the ballpark just to the left of dead center field. And it really looked like that was just going to be a pop fly, maybe in shallow center, but that thing kept on carrying, and eventually it wound up over the fence. It might even have made it to the seats, but it was out of the park for a home run, his 15th of the year, and I believe that's his first Major League Grand Slam. That was the third home run in that ball game. Greg Brock had one to right field. He really poked that one. That's his 20th of the year. He's hit a few against the Reds this year. And Nick Osaski had one for the Reds. That's his first since August 6th, his 9th of the season. Osaski's the only one for Cincinnati. He knocked in 2 of the 3 Reds runs. Dave Concepcion had the other Reds RBI. Marshall gets the game-winning RBI, his 10th of the season. LA ends up sweeping that series, and Marshall gets 2 game-winning home runs. Big series for that young man who can play first base and third base, and he was in right field in that series. Boy, has that guy got some power. So does that Greg Brock, 2 fine young ones. The total, 7 runs on 12 hits, no errors, 6 left on for the Dodgers, 3 runs, 8 hits, 2 errors, 3 left for Cincinnati, as Ben Hayes goes to 4-4 with the loss, gives up 4 runs, 3 hits, a walk, and a third of an inning, following Tom Hume's 3-inning stint in which he allowed a run, 2 hits, and struck out a couple. Frank Pastore, the starter, didn't do too badly. Allowed 2 runs, 7 hits, and 6+ innings, walked nobody, and struck out 3. The attendance, the paid crowd, 44,198, and over 48,500 total in the house. A 2-hour, 48-minute contest. I clocked it at 2:49. At 2:48 the official time, and the game was over as Marshall tapped home plate, and he was amidst a lot of Dodger blue at home plate. Just about everybody came out of the dugout, and they've called up a lot of players from AAA Albuquerque and also AA San Antonio. They've had some people that are foreign to the Major League scene in that series against the Reds. Names like Sid Bream, who had a big game-tying pinch hit single to right field in the 9th inning to tie it up at 3-3, and also R.J. Reynolds and Cecil Espy, who also participated in part of that 2-game series. They've been called up from either AAA or AA recently. They've got a lot of players in uniform, and then just about everybody was out there to greet Marshall as he cracked the game-winning grand slam off Ben Hayes to give the Dodgers the 7-3 10-inning victory. So a demoralizing defeat right there. The Reds cannot bounce back the next day, although they did have a lead at one point of 1-0. On Thursday night, September the 8th, that was a USA Network televised ball game, televised nationally, with Monty Moore and Wes Parker on the scene at Dodger Stadium. Dodgers win it, and again on a big home run by Mike Marshall. His 16th of the year, his 11th game-winning RBI. The Dodgers had 3 in the 4th, 2 in the 6th inning. They win it 5-2, this time in regulation 9, 8.5 actually. Bobby Welch gets the win. He's now 14-11, having a good year. 8 innings, 4 hits, a run. He walked 2, struck out 8, and balked once. Then Tom Niedenfuer came on for 2/3, allowed 3 hits and a run, and Steve Howell nailed it down for his 17th save, 1/3 of an inning, as he got pinch hitter Cesar Cedeno to pop up to short to win that ball game in 2 hours and 29 minutes. The Reds' loser is Mario Soto. This is the first of 2 pitching lines I have to pass along for our Dominican dandy. He didn't do that badly, struggled somewhat in that ball game. He did give up 5 runs, all earned, 7 hits in 7 innings. He walked 4 and struck out 4. Then Billy Shear, 1 inning, a hit and a strikeout. Soto goes down to his 12th loss against 15 wins at that point on September the 8th. They had 45,826 paid at Dodger Stadium, and the total attendance was 49,136 as they passed the 3 million mark just the day before the Reds came in, I think September 5th or 6th. The Dodgers went over 3 million. They had 3,019,000 plus as the Reds hit town. Just amazing how they draw out there at Chavez Ravine in California. And they have 45,000 and 44,000 paid on September 8 and 7, respectively. They continue to pack him in, and they will continue to the rest of the year. They got a big series. They had a big series over the weekend against Atlanta. Dodgers winning 2 of 3, and I'm sure it was sellout time each and every one of those ball games. Let's see. Marshall's was the only home run on September the 8th. The only Reds RBI came from Paul Householder, his 31st of the year. So, well, Mike Marshall did us in that series. Dodgers sweep at 7-3 and 10 and 5-2. And Marshall hits a couple of home runs. He knocked in 3. He knocked in 7 runs with a couple of home runs in that series. The totals for that September 8th ball game, the Dodgers had 5 runs, 8 hits, no errors, and left 7. The Reds 2 runs, 7 hits, no errors, and 5 men left on base. And then the Reds packed up and went to San Diego for a 2-game set beginning on Friday night, September the 9th. And that was the 3rd straight 2-game series played by Cincinnati on that road trip after opening it up with a 3-gamer at St. Louis, and that was the final series of the year against an Eastern Division ball club for Cincinnati. And after the Cardinals, the Reds played a two-gamer at San Francisco, including that holiday Labor Day afternoon contest, and then two night games at Los Angeles, and then a two-game series over this past weekend at Jack Murphy Stadium in San Diego. That was kind of a strange series because there was an off day in between on Saturday, September the 10th, and that is because the University of San Diego played a football game at Jack Murphy Stadium, and so the Reds and Padres had an off day, so it was just a two-game series instead of a three. Over the weekend, you would normally see Friday, Saturday, Sunday, of course, but they had the off day Saturday, played Friday and Sunday. The Reds losing on Friday 8-2, the Reds' third straight loss, and they couldn't get much against the slants of young right-hander Andy Hawkins, who wins for the fourth time in 10 decisions and posts a complete game four-hitter, allows just 2 runs, 1 earned. He hit a batter, Eddie Milner. He struck out 3 and walked only 2 batters, so a good job by Hawkins for his fourth win. As he limits the Reds to just 2 tallies, the Padres get 8 runs, including a home run. They had a home run from Bobby Brown, who's done just a fine job since being called up from AAA Las Vegas on July 31st, right after Steve Garvey went down with the ligament damage in his thumb on July the 29th in the home plate collision against the Atlanta Braves in the first game of a doubleheader. Brown got the call up. He's been hitting about 300. He's had 5 homers, 2 against the Reds, 1 a grand slam back in August against Tommy Hume. So 5 homers for Bobby Brown now. That one he hit on Friday night. Tony Gwynn, 1 for 5 in the game, knocked in 2. He gets the game-winning RBI, his 5th of the year. That extends a hitting streak for him to 19 in a row, second longest in the National League this year, behind his teammate Bobby Brown, who has the longest in the majors this season at 21 straight, and that sets a new Padre record, which might be surpassed later, or might have already been done, or maybe coming up this week by Mr. Tony Gwynn, who's right on the heels of Brown, who had that hitting streak started when the Reds were in town on August 5th, I believe. And he hit in 21 straight, a new Padre record, eclipsing the old record of, I believe, 15 or 16 in a row, set by Dave Winfield in 1977. And what's ironic is that Tony Gwynn came within 1 of tying Winfield's record. Last season, he was stopped by Cincinnati last August. And now Gwynn and Brown have gone on and, have set new records for Padres hitting streaks. And doing it just about at the same time and almost matching each other every single day. The Padres won at 8-2 on September 9th. Here's the totals. 8-11-1 for San Diego. They left 7. The Reds had 2 runs, 4 hits, and 3 errors. 2 by Tom Foley and 1 by Oster. And that led to 1 unearned run. 3 men left on base for Cincinnati. Charlie Puleo takes the loss. He now has the proverbial dime store record of 5-10. He allowed 6 hits, 5 runs all earned, and 5 1/3 frames. He walked 5, fanned a couple. He was an emergency starter because lefty Joe Price was unable to go. He had some stiffness in his left arm while warming up, and so Puleo went out as a spot starter. That's just about what he's going to do, I guess, the rest of the year. He'll probably be working out of the bullpen some and spot starting because if you include Puleo, we've got 6 starters on the club, what with Price coming off the disabled list on September the 1st, I believe. Of course, Mario Soto heads up the staff. Then you've got Joe Price, and you've got Jeff Russell, who's done just a fine job. He's got a 2.03 ERA right now. He was at 2.19 after that 2-hitter that he lost in the complete game at San Francisco. Of course, he would have to be considered, I guess, right now the number 3 starter. And you got Bruce Bereni also, and Frank Pastore, who's done a fine job with an ERA of about 3.5 since the All-Star game, and then Puleo. So that's 6 starters. If you include Charlie in there, and he goes out and loses on Friday, gives up 6 hits and 5 1/3, turns it over to Billy Shear for 2/3. He allowed 3 hits and 2 runs and struck out 1. Ted Power went the final 2 innings, allowed 1 unearned run, 2 hits with 2 strikeouts. But the day was Andy Hawkins, I guess, a complete game 4-hitter, fine job. And the Pods win it by 6. A 2-hour, 12-minute game. They had $14,745 paid at Jack Murphy Stadium, $18,046 total in the stadium. There was a Reds home run by Danny Bellardello, a second of the road trip. His 7th home run of the season, his 29th RBI for the only Reds ribby in that game. And Gwynn gets that game-winning RBI, his 5th of the season. And so the Reds were trying to snap a 3-game losing streak on Sunday after the off day Saturday. They picked it up on Sunday, September the 11th. The Reds did just that, snapped the losing streak with a 4-2 victory and a 12-hit attack as they split that set at San Diego and wind up 4-5 on the 9-game road trip. 4 runs, 12 hits, no errors, 10 left on for Cincinnati on Sunday. The Padres had 2 runs, 7 hits, no errors, and left 6. Jeff Russell gets the victory as he pitches 5-hit ball and gives up just 1 run over the first 7 1/3 innings. He walks 3 and he strikes out 2 in that game to go to 3-2 on the year, now with that 2.03 ERA. He has done a fine job since being called up to replace Joe Price in August. In 6 starts, 2 complete games, has walked just 12 and has struck out 26, has allowed 13 runs and 32 hits and 44 in the third frames. Some outstanding numbers for young right-hander Jeff Russell out of Wyoming High School in Cincinnati. He was followed by Billy Shearer for 2/3. He allowed a hit, no run, struck out 1, and Tom Hume came on for 1 inning to register his 8th save of the year. He allowed a hit and a run, struck out 1. Mark Thurmond, the young lefty, pitching against the Reds for the second time. He takes the loss. He's 0-1 lifetime against the Reds. He's 7-3 this season. 6 innings, 7 hits, 3 runs, 3 earned, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. And then 3 young ones came on. 3 young right-handers. Greg Booker for 1 2/3, 3 hits, no runs, 3 walks, a strikeout, his first major league game. Floyd Schiffer, a third of an inning. And then Steve Fireovid, I believe that's his first major league game. An inning, 2 hits, a run, and a strikeout. Greg Booker, Floyd Schiffer, and Steve Fireovid. Steve Fireovid. Fireovid. And he's been around for a few years in that Padre organization and finally has made it up to the big league team late this season. There were a couple of home runs in that ball game. Paul Householder had a big home run for the Reds. And that was his 5th of the season. His first since the 14th of August against that same Padre club at Riverfront. And Kevin McReynolds hit 1. And that would be his 3rd of the season. Gary Reedus, a couple of stolen bases, his first in a while, gives him 36 on the season. Reedus, Householder, Osaski, and Dreesen knocked in the 4 Reds runs, and Reedus gets his 2nd game winner of the road trip, his 11th game-winning RBI of the season, the most game winners by any Reds player since Davey Concepcion at 14 to lead the team in 1981. 2 hours and 39 minutes it took to play on Sunday. They had 18,947 paid, 20,531 total on hand at San Diego. A lot of those people came in late to see a concert performed after the ball game. They had a couple of country and western singers performing after that Reds-Padre ball game. Juice Newton and Charlie Daniels performed after the contest, and it took a while to get that attendance figure in, but it came across at 20531 for the total figure. So the Reds split the series, a 4-2 final behind Russell, Hume, and also Householder and Reedus. And the Reds close out the road trip with the victory on September the 11th. Then it was another off day on Monday, September the 12th, before getting back to action in this series last evening, Tuesday, September the 13th, and boy, that was some kind of game for Mario Soto. A 3-hit shutout, and that is the, second shutout out of the last 11 days for Cincinnati after not having one since May 27th. And that is Soto's first shutout since that May 27th game against the Pirates at home, a 9-0 4-hitter, or a 5-hitter, I think it was. And he gets his 3rd shutout of the year. His 17th complete game, his 16th win, lowers his ERA 10 notches to 257, 4th best in the league, and he is a solid contender for Cy Young honors. He still has an outside chance to win 20 if he wins out his last 4 starts of the year, and hopefully they'll bring him back on the 4th day to pitch the final day of the year at Houston. Let's take a look at his pitching line last night in the 6-0 final. 9 innings, 3 hits, no runs of any kind, walked 2 batters, hit a batter, Glenn Hubbard, and struck out 9 batters to raise his total to 219, 2nd in Major League Baseball. His ERA is now 2.57. He's won 16. He's lost 12. He's completed 17. Best figure in the majors, has completed 55% of his 31 starts, with now 3 shutouts, 24 homers allowed, 251 and 2/3 innings. That's only 6 innings shy of his total innings pitch figure for last year. 191 hits is all he's given up. Amazing. 82 runs, 72 earned. He's walked 82 and has struck out 219 9 on the year. 219 Ks for Mario Melvin Soto. It was an all-around great day for Soto, despite pitching the 3-hit shutout. It was announced after the ball game that Mario had inked a pact for the next 5 seasons. Soto's name is now on the dotted line of a new contract. Soto signs on for 5 seasons, and it is reportedly the biggest contract ever given out by the Cincinnati Reds. So quite a lucrative deal signed by Soto on September the 13th. A 5-year contract with 2 option years, and that would put him in a Reds uniform at least through 1988. So he's going to be making in excess of $1 million a year over the next 5 to 7 seasons. That is good to see. He's in the fold with the Cincinnati Reds for the next 5 years. So good day all around. A 6-0 Reds win to kick off the homestand on a good note as Soto gets his 16th win and bests another good one in Pascual Perez, who goes down to his 8th loss against 13 wins. He's been trying for his 14th win now for 7 straight starts, hasn't got it yet. 6 innings he went, allowed 6 hits, 3 runs, 2 earned. He walked 3, struck out 5. Then Ken Daly for 2/3, no hits, 2 runs, 2 walks. And then Tony Brizolara, 2/3 of an inning, 3 hits, a run, a walk, a K. Donnie Moore, 2/3 of an inning. They had 9,415 paid at Riverfront last evening. 10,208 total in the stadium, a 2-hour, 32-minute ball game. Nick Esaski, a home run for the Reds, his 10th of the year, and that was the only long ball in the contest. Eddie Milner had 2 stolen bases to give him 35, and Dale Murphy had 3 stolen bases to give him 27 on the season. Murphy having another dandy season, as he has 32 home runs on the year, and leads the league in runs batted in, has already passed up last year's total of RBIs. Well, no, he hasn't. He's 1 shy, but he's going to be passing it very soon. At 109 last year to top the circuit along with Al Oliver. So Murphy, for the 2nd straight year, a candidate for the Most Valuable Player Award in the National League, and of course he copped that honor last season when he had a sensational year for those division-winning Braves, and he's even bettering his stats this year. So he and Andre Dawson might be in a neck-and-neck battle for the MVP voting when the votes are counted. It could be very close. Maybe Mario Soto will get a few votes, too, for MVP, the way he has been pitching this season. 17 complete games, 16 wins, and a 2.57 ERA, and 3 shutouts now for him. Milner, Trevino, Householder, and Esaski had RBIs last night for the Reds. Esaski gets his 40th of the year, and that's his 2nd in as many games. So he's got 40 RBIs, 10 homers, and he went through some kind of a bad spell where he couldn't even hit the baseball, but over the last few games he's been picking up nicely, Esaski has. So that brings us up to tonight's ball game. That fills you in on the last 7 contests. The Reds are now 66 and 79 on the year. Still in last place in the West, but only a couple of games behind the 5th place San Francisco Giants. It would be nice to catch them and get out of the basement for the first time in a while. The Reds have not been out of 6th place in, well, several months. We're now rest 18 and 1/2 games behind, and the Reds played spoilers last night, beating the 2nd place Braves. Hopefully we can sweep this series behind Frank Pastore this evening. Reds against the Braves wrap up to a 2-game series at Riverfront, so stay tuned. Major League Baseball's coming up with the Reds.
Gene Garber getting ready for Atlanta just in the event that they should do something here to force a home 9th inning. That is hit back up the middle. Davey gets to it behind second. Snap throw. Good play. Got it. He has not had the good year offensively. And a lot of that has to do with a bad shoulder. But, brother, I'll tell you, at times he is dazzling at shortstop. He had to unload right now and throw on the move, and he threw a strike to Dreesen to knock off Hubbard. So with 1 out, it's going to be Terry Harper to pinch hit for Steve Bedrosian. This is going to put, if they lose it, a severe dent in Atlanta's comeback hopes to overtake the Dodgers. Pitching Shears, swinging, ground ball wide of third, picked off by Esaski. He throws, and there are 2 men out. So it is up to Brett Butler, their leadoff batter, to try and keep him alive, and it looks like he's going to be taken down, and Bob Watson will become another Atlanta pinch hitter. So referring to those signs hanging off the lower deck and left earlier tonight, one says, Ward, I'm worried about the Braves. The one next to it says, don't worry, June, they're playing the Reds. I don't think Joe Torre would find that too humorous at this point. Shearer needs a strike. Watson lines one to short, and this one belongs to the Reds. Billy Shearer gets him out 1-2-3 here in the ninth inning. And the final score as the Reds come battling back to defeat the Atlanta Braves 6-2.
You've been listening to game action described by Marty Brennaman at Riverfront Stadium on September the 14th. An exciting come-from-behind Reds 6-4 win over Atlanta this evening in the wrap-up to this two-game series. And Atlanta cannot win a game in the set. The Reds sweep them, and they outscore them 12-4. A 6-0 shutout win last night, 6-4 this evening. And you heard the action there in the ninth inning, as Marty called the three straight outs as reliever Billy Shearer got Hubbard and then a couple of pinch hitters, Harper and Watson. He got him down 1-2-3. A ball was not hit out of the infield in that ninth inning, and Shearer almost was eligible for a save, but he had the Reds had a 4-run lead when he came on to pitch in the eighth inning. If they'd had a 3-run lead, he would have gotten his 10th save, but those are the breaks under the rules. He does not get a save, but still he gets a game finished, and a pretty good job in the ninth inning by Shearer. He did give up a 2-run home run to Murphy in the eighth inning, but the Reds had a fairly comfortable lead at 6-2 at that point. That made it a 6-4 final with a 2-run home run in the eighth inning for the Braves, and it ends up a 2-run separation. And, well, you heard Marty Brennaman there say a 6-2 final score, and, well, that's not exactly correct. He didn't have the score right there. It was a 6-4 final score. I will normally have scores and comments with Marty Brennaman in this particular section of the broadcast, but I've got a lot of things to pass along, and we're running a little bit of short on time here on this side, so I'll just take it myself here, and I'll relay the stuff that Marty would normally say. First of all, I'll take a look at the totals. The Reds win at 6-4, 6 hits for the Reds, 8 hits for the Braves. They out-hit us by 2, but lose by 2. No errors for Atlanta, 1 for Cincinnati, and 6 men left on base for each team. There were 10 runs, 14 hits, 12 left, 1 error in this game overall. Frank Pastore, the starter and the winner for Cincinnati, he breaks a 6-game losing streak against Atlanta, and Phil Niekro goes down to his 9th loss. He has not won a ball game in 10 days shy of 1 month now. It's been 3 weeks since he's had a victory. Nick Osaski, a game-winning RBI, his 2nd in this series, as he picked up his 4th game-winning run batted in last night's ball game, in that 6-0 shutout win. He had a towering home run last night. Was well back into the green seats in the second inning for the first run of that ball game, and eventually we win it by 6 behind the shutout pitching of Soto, of course. Osaski hits 2 homers and gets 5 RBIs, 2 game-winning RBIs in this series, so a good series for Mr. Osaski, who's really starting to swing the bat a little bit better now. He's now tied for 2nd on the team in homers. We've got 4 players right at 11, and we've got 5 players with 11 or more home runs, including the leader, Gary Ritas, who has 15 home runs. Osaski had a big bases-loaded home run in the 7th inning, which I'll highlight with Reds announcer Joe Nuxall coming up later when I take a look at this ball game play-by-play. I'll be playing that a couple of times. Osaski, a grand slam to fracture a 2-2 tie, send the Reds out in front 6-2. Then, as I mentioned, Atlanta comes back with 2 in the 8th, but still loses it by 2, as Shearer gets him out in order in the 9th. Shearer retired, actually, the final 6 in the ball game. The first 2 got on, 1 on the home run, 1 on a pinch hit single. And so actually down the stretch, a good job by Shearer. He did not get rattled after the long home run by Murphy, his 2nd of the night. And a lot of home runs in this game. 4 homers in the contest among the 14 base hits. 2 homers for each team. A good evening of baseball for the crowd of 9,222 to witness at Riverfront. Then it's the Astros coming into town on Friday. They'll be in for the final time this year, and this was the final game at Riverfront between the Reds and the Braves this season. And last night, the Reds snapped a 6-game losing streak against the Braves in games at Riverfront, that is. And at one time this year, the Braves had won 10 in a row against us in both cities. And last night's win for the Reds was their first over the Braves at Riverfront since opening day. A 5-4 come-from-behind win on opening day. Then they lost 2 days later to Perez in a complete game for Pascual in his first start, and then they lost 5 in a row, all in one series, including a twilight doubleheader on June 24th, and this is only the 4th win over Atlanta all year for the Reds, but that equals the number we won against them last year. I tell you, over the last 2 years, we've not had much luck against Atlanta, although 2-0 in the last 2. 4-11 this year, and 4-14 last year. That's 8-25 against the Braves over the last 2 years, with 3 games still to play this season, and that'll be on the last road trip of the year. 3 games at Fulton County Stadium. The Reds finish up 3-6 against the Braves at Riverfront. They're 1-5 so far at Atlanta against this second-place ball club. Boy, I tell you, the Reds really put Atlanta in a tough position. Braves needed to win at least one of these games, and I imagine they were looking to sweep it while with playing the last-place ball club. But the Reds played tough in this series and win and score 12 runs in doing it. And getting only 6 hits tonight, but enough to win what with a big grand slam and a lot of walks given up by the Brave starter Phil Niekros. Came back to haunt the ageless right-hander later in the ball game. And so a tough couple of losses for Atlanta. Last night's game was played under protest, as manager Joe Torre and the Braves thought Davey Concepcion had interfered with catcher Biff Pocoroba when he was trying to make a throw down to second base on one of Eddie Milner's stolen bases. But I don't think that's going to stand up. That's not going to hold much water, because how can you protest on a stolen base? Well, he did come around to score, but that's a judgment call on the umpire's part as to whether Concepcion interfered or not. He was leaning across the plate trying to get out of the way of an inside pitch, and he accidentally fell across the plate, and I don't think that's going to pose much problem for Cincinnati, especially since we won it by a fairly easy margin, and Soto was just so magnificent on the mound, it wouldn't have made much difference anyway. A 6-0 final last night, 6-4 this evening. I've got highlights and statistics coming up concerning this one. This was my 35th game of the year. I'll take a look at my data here for the year. This stops a 3-game losing streak in my games scored. The Reds have now won 17 and lost 18 this year in games that I have penciled in, and that figures to a .486 winning percentage, just 1 away from .500 now. At home, 7-8, and against the West, 8-9. In nighttime games, 11-11. Against Atlanta this year, 3 wins, 2 losses. Last season, 1-5 was my final slate against the Braves. The Reds have won 2 of 3 against the Braves this season at Riverfront that I have scored. So far in September, a win and 2 losses after going 3-3 in August. This is lifetime game number 345. It's number 338 with the Reds. 197 losses now. Or make that 197 victories, I should say. This being win 197, just 3 away from the big 200 mark in lifetime wins that I have scored with the Reds going back to the middle of the 1975 season. I've scored 141 losses, and that figures to a .583 winning percentage, 56 over. In games on cassette tape, 231 of them, 130 have been wins, 101 in the loss column, 29 over for a .563 winning percentage. And now 17 and 18 this year, .486 percentage. And fairly good against Atlanta. That's really amazing. I've scored 3 of the wins against the Braves. I scored that only win at Atlanta. That was on a Nick Osaski 2-run home run, 2-1 win July 3rd. And, of course, opening day, and now this win. So I've scored 3 of the 4 Reds wins against the Braves, missing only last night's 6-0 complete game shutout for Soto. Okay, now let's have a look at the umpires. What do you say? Let's get this out of the way first. The preliminaries. Behind the plate is Ed Vargo this evening. At first base, Joe West. Second base, Dick Stello. Third base, Satch Davidson. The weather conditions, very nice. Autumnal conditions finally arriving in the Queen City and surrounding areas. After just such a sticky summer, you could not believe it. Unbearable most of the time in Cincinnati. Maybe that's kept the attendance down a little bit. It's just been so hot. But they didn't gather many people in there tonight after that fine pitching performance last night. Only 9,000 paid last night, 9,000 tonight. This is the 6th crowd that has been under 10,000 on a total attendance figure this year, that is. There have been some others that have been paid under 10,000, but the total's been over. But the total attendance, as for total attendance, this is the 6th time they've been under 10,000, and that's not a good figure. The Reds have now drawn 1,043,275. According to the box score figures, that's an average of just over 15,000 per date this season. But the weather conditions this evening were very nice, cool conditions. Low tonight going down to 49. High today under sunny skies of 73 degrees and a light northeasterly breeze at the stadium. The game was underway about a minute late, 7:36 p.m. They didn't have a recorded national anthem tonight. Someone out there was belting out the tune, and she was taken a little bit of a little bit more time than they thought it was going to take to sing the anthem. She was drawing it out a little bit, so we had a minute delay, and so it's a 7:36 p.m. start time. You could say it's a 1-minute national anthem delay, if you will, because the Reds normally will start their games right on time if they had the pre-recorded national anthem. Okay, let's go into other things now. The Braves have now lost 3 straight games. 3 straight losses for the Braves and 13 losses in their last 18 contests. They've been slumping of late, while the Reds have now won 3 in a row. The Reds have still lost 3 of 6, 5 of the last 9, and have gone 7-8, 1 under in the last 15. But of late, it's been win, win, win. 3 consecutive triumphs. Winning over the Padres on Sunday, and then beating the Braves in the first 2 games of this series. And now we'll have a look at the lineups and the game time averages for these individuals. For the visiting Atlanta Braves, the leadoff batter is Brett Butler, a second-year outfielder. It looks like he's going to be on his way to Cleveland after this season is over, as one of the players involved in that 4-player transaction that was originally consummated on the 8th of last month, involving Len Barker, bringing Barker to the National League with a very high ERA of 5.11. And he has not done such a great job with Atlanta, although his last 2 games have not been too bad. So Butler probably on his way to the Indians after this season. Having a pretty good year with Atlanta this year. 275 is pregame average with 4 homers and 34 runs knocked in. Hitting second is Jerry Royster at third base, and he was originally not in the lineup. Randy Johnson was in there, but manager Torrey decided to go with Royster, the ex-Dodger, instead. 3 homers, 27 RBIs, and a 252 average, and he was really hot down the stretch last year when the Braves needed him in there. They were suffering through injuries last year, and just about the same thing has befallen them this season. They've got Bob Horner out for the year, and third baseman was having a very good year. Horner is lost for the season. They've got to fill in with Johnson and Royster and whoever else over there, mainly Royster. And they've suffered with other injuries also. They've lost Rick Camp for the season now, one of their pitchers who can start and relieve. Royster batting second. Hitting third and right field is Claudell Washington. He was out for a period earlier this year, as was Chris Chambliss on the disabled list for the first time in his career, I believe. Washington at 275. He's having a subpar year. 8 homers, 37 RBIs last year. He had 80 runs batted in. He's way behind that pace. Hitting fourth and center field is their big man, and he's got a chance at being the second MVP. What I want to say is he has a chance to win his second straight Most Valuable Player award, something that Mike Schmidt did in 80 and 81, and now in 82-83 it could very well be Dale Murphy turning the trick also. 2 straight years as the MVP, because his stats are, well, simply amazing. A 309 average. Now, that would be probably in the top 15 of the league. 32 home runs at game time. He adds 2 more to that column. And 108 RBIs. He now has bypassed his last year's total of runs batted in, which led the league at 109. He's got 112 now with his 2 home runs tonight. He's had 3 2-homer games since September the 4th. September 4, September 8, and now September 14. He's had 2 homers at each of those contests and has had 8 home runs in his last 9 games. This guy's been on fire. And a 309 average also. It's not that he's hitting just home runs and then striking out every other time. He gets on base a lot of other times besides the home runs. He's not a Dave Kingman type hitter. He hits for a good average and steals bases. 27 steals, 124 runs scored to lead the league. So he's got better stats this year than last. And he was in a tailspin last September when the Braves really needed him. They went into the playoffs anyway without Murphy at his best, but now Murph's really getting it cranked up for the stretch drive. 309 at game time. Batting fifth is Chris Chambliss at first base. Another solid year for this former Yankee. 280 average, 18 homers, and 74 knocked in. Batting sixth is the shortstop Rafael Ramirez. He's having a good year. He's over 300 at 302, 6 homers, and he's knocked in 51. Hitting seventh is the catcher Bruce Benedict at 299, 1 homer, 37 RBIs. Batting eighth at second base, Glenn Hubbard at 252, 9 homers, 60 RBIs. Batting ninth, the pitcher Phil Niekro, 158 average with 3 runs batted in. For the homestanding Cincinnati Reds this evening, their lineup looked like this. Leading off in center field is Eddie Milner. I really like to watch this guy play. He's having another pretty good season. Last year he hit 268 in his first season as a Cincinnati Red, his first full year. And this year hitting 261, although in a bit of a slump, 1 out of his last 14 entering this game. He's got 8 home runs with the 1 he hit tonight. And I should read off his game time stat of 7 homers. 7 homers and a total of 28 RBIs. And he's picked up a couple of runs batted in over the last few days. 29 now for Milner. He had not had an RBI since, I think, early to mid-August. It's been just about a month since he had a run batted in, and now he's had 2 in the last couple of days to give him 29 on the year. Hitting second in left field is Gary Redus. He, along with Eddie Milner, topping the club in stolen bases. They're in a dead heat right now with Milner picking up 1 and 1 attempt tonight. So 36 stolen bases for each one of those ball players. Redus, as far as a batting average, hitting .252 through last night's play with a club-leading 15 home runs, and he's got 45 runs batted in. He's a candidate for the 83 NL Rookie of the Year award. His stats aren't really overwhelming, but they're fairly solid stats for him when you consider all the stolen bases and his runs produced. He scored a lot of runs. He's walked now 61 times with 2 times tonight. That's third on the team, 7 behind team leader Dreesen, who has walked 68 times, including 3 times this evening. So you take all that in consideration with him getting on base, stealing the bases, and scoring the runs. Other people driving him in. Really, he's been a viable property and has done a fairly good job in the outfield, although at times has looked a little shabby out there, committed 1 error, the only error in this ball game tonight. It was in the very first inning on the first play of the game. Batting third at shortstop is Davey Concepcion, a game-time average of .233 with 1 home run and 44 RBIs. Hitting fourth at first base is Danny Dreesen. He checks in at .287. That tops the team. He's got 11 home runs and a club-leading 51 RBIs, tied with Ronnie Oster for the lead in ribbies. Hitting fifth at third base is tonight's star of the game, Nick Osaski. Came into this game with a 3-game hitting streak, a .263 batting average, 10 home runs, and 40 RBIs. So Osaski's had himself several RBIs in the last few games, what with picking up 4 with 1 swing of the bat tonight. And he's batting 5th behind Dreesen and in front of the number 6 hitter, right fielder Paul Householder, who's really been a hot hitter, an 8-game hitting streak entering this game, which he does extend. A .260 batting average overall against the league for House, and over those last 8 games hitting well above the .320 mark, I would imagine. And he's got himself 33 RBIs to go with 5 home runs. Hitting 7th at second base is Ronnie Oster, 51 RBIs, 11 home runs, just like Danny Dreesen. And his batting average at .259, he has been slumping off. With today's 1 out of 4, it puts him only 6 for his last 47 at-bats, and he's only gone 4 for his last 32. Now, Ronnie has been in a slump, which has seen his average drop from the upper 280s to low 290s to right around 260 where it is now. Hitting 8th is the catcher, Dan Billardello, the rookie, having a fairly good year, I believe. His average is low, but his run production isn't too bad, and he's done a fine job behind the plate, I think. A .232 average for Danny, the former Dodgers farmhand, who, before this year, had never played above the Double-A level, made the big jump from Double-A to the major leagues, and is doing okay. He now has 7 home runs. 2 on that last road trip. He's knocked in 29 runs, 5 of those game winners. Hitting 9th is the pitcher, Frank Pastore, checking in with a batting average of .180 with 9 base hits. And he does have 1 home run. That was in a complete game win at San Diego August the 7th. And he has knocked in a total of... let me see here. How many has he knocked in? He's knocked in 5, and that leads Reds pitchers. Russell, Palaio, Gale have 3 RBIs apiece. And 2 RBIs for Soto. We've had 3 pitchers crack home runs this year. Pastore was the first one. He had the only one for pitchers last season, and then Jeff Russell hit one at Chicago for his first Major League clout, and Rich Gale hit one at Chicago for his second Major League home run, both at Wrigley Field, or that Gale's was at Riverfront, I should say. So that's a look at the lineups for the Reds and for the Atlanta Braves. And now let's go to the game action in the top half of the first inning. It's Pastore pitching against left-handed batting Braves leadoff batter Brett Butler, and he has a base hit down the left field line. He had a slicing drive that was tailing away from Redus. He tried to make an attempt at catching the baseball and then pulled up, and the ball almost bounced by him. It took a high hop, but Redus should have fielded the ball, and it went off of his glove and into foul territory and into the bullpen, and Butler got to second base. They did not score a double. A good scoring decision because Redus should have fielded this. So it's a single to left for Butler and an error on Redus. He's at second with nobody out, and they do not score him. Royster moves him up to third with a 1-3 sacrifice bunt, but then Claudell Washington hits a first pitch pop-up to shortstop Concepcion. And then, when Butler tries to steal home plate, he is tagged out by catcher Dan Billardello. And we haven't seen this in a while, a straight steal of home. It was not a squeeze attempt, because Murphy was backing out of the batter's box immediately as the pitch was coming from the pitcher Pastore to the plate. It's a good thing it was not in the dirt, or else it would have been a stolen base for Butler, who has over 30 steals this year and over 50 attempts, but he's caught stealing here. And they originally made it a 1-2 putout, but They took the assist away from Pastore because he is on the pitching rubber and is making his pitch to the plate. So really, he's not a fielder in this situation. And so you don't give him an assist because that pitch counted to the plate, and he was not making a play on the runner. So that's a good scoring decision. So it's 2 unassisted, and it's kind of a tricky situation here. There's an interesting rule that could be applied here. If Bill Ardello had moved out in front of the plate or had even touched the plate before he had received the baseball, that is a balk, an unusual balk, but a balk nonetheless, and Butler would have been given home plate, no steal. It would have been a balk. But Bill Ardello properly waited until the pitch arrived, and then he lunged at the runner and just did get him on the hand as he was diving in. So a caught stealing of home plate, and Butler's nailed. No runs, 1 hit, 1 error, nobody left on base. In the bottom half of the first inning, the Reds get 2 back-to-back bases on balls from the wily old veteran right-hander Phil Niekro. Milner hit a first pitch fly ball to left field, then Ritas fanned swinging. Concepcion then walked on a 3-2 pitch, the first of 9 passes given by Niekro tonight. Then Dreesen had a base on balls, first and second for Osaski. He had a fly ball to center fielder Murphy, a routine play for him, and the threat died. No runs, no hits, a pair left on. In the top of the second inning, Murphy hit an absolute bolt to the right fielder Householder. He stung that thing, and House looked a little perplexed after catching that baseball, and that ball was really tagged. It might have gotten up in the lights. It was on a line out there in right field. It might have hung up in the lights just for a second, but Householder made the catch, and a BB, the first of 3 shots he's to hit to right field tonight, and 2 of those leave the yard. With 1 out, Chambliss had a base on balls, and then Ramirez had a ground ball to first with the runner moving. Dreesen made the play, stepped on first, and could not get the ball out of the glove. Chambliss safe at second. Runner at second, 2 down for Benedict. A fly ball to center field ends the inning. No runs, no hits, no errors, 1 left. In the bottom of the second, the Reds are out 1-2-3 on 3 grounders against Niekro. Householder on a full count pitch hit a ground ball to second. Then on a 3-1 pitch, Oster grounded out 3-1. First baseman Chambliss to the pitcher on a nice feed, and then Bill Ardello a 6-3 ground ball on the first pitch to him. Nothing across. In the top of the third inning, Pastore goes out there and gives up a leadoff base hit to Glenn Hubbard. That was on the first pitch of the inning. He's moved up on a 3-4 sacrifice by Niekro on the first pitch to him. Then on the first pitch to Brett Butler, he lines out softly to the shortstop Concepcion for the second out, and then Royster grounds out to shortstop, and they just did get Speedy Royster as Concepcion, as usual, made a fine play at shortstop, and he made another nice one in the ninth inning for the leadoff out on Hubbard, a critical play to get that first man out in the ninth, because if anybody gets on, the tying run was at the plate, and Davey does his fine job at shortstop, as he has been doing since 1970 with Cincinnati. He has been magnificent at shortstop this season. This was another good play to gun down Royster and end the inning. He made one of those skip throws over to first to get Ramirez with 1 out in the 8th inning. He hopped the ball to first baseman Dreesen. That's something, I guess, that has become somewhat of a trademark for Davey, while with playing on the AstroTurf at Riverfront at least 81 games a season. And AstroTurf ballparks and a lot of other cities also. Davey bounces it over there on occasion and gets the ball there, I think, just as quick. And Davey can release it faster also, and doesn't have to put quite as much on it, because when it hits the turf, it picks up speed. And Dreesen with the big stretch was there to receive it, and they just did nab Ramirez that way in the 8th inning. And in the third inning, no runs, 1 hit, no errors, 1 left. We go to the bottom half of the third inning, and the Reds get on the board first. Frank Pastore opens up with a fly ball to left field. He tagged that ball pretty well. Butler made the catch. Then Eddie Milner on a 3-1 pitch took care of an Niekro delivery and gives the Reds a quick lead.
He throws a knuckler not. He didn't, and Miller hits it well to right field. Claudell Washington to the warning track. He's at the fence. He leaps. It's out of here. Now, Eddie Milner, his 8th home run of the year, and it's a 1-0 ball game. Well, Eddie Milner puts the Reds on the scoreboard just as Nick Osaski did last night, only Nick's home run coming in the second inning. So it's a 1-0 game, and Gary Ritas steps in.
Eddie Milner with a 1-out solo home run to right field on a 3-1 pitch for his 8th home run of the season. It gives him RBI number 29 of the year. And then Gary Ritas at a ground ball to shortstop, and Concepcion flied out to right field to end the inning. 1 run, 1 hit, nobody left on. It's 1-0 Reds, and that lead quickly evaporates as Atlanta scores 2 in the top of the 4th inning. And the first 2 batters up score. That's exactly the same thing that happened in the 8th inning when they got their final 2 runs. Exactly the same way. The leadoff batter had a single, and then Murphy took care of a pitch and rode it out at Riverfront Stadium. This time, Washington, a first pitch single into left center field, cut off by Arias. And then Murphy hits a long home run to right center field off of a 3-1 pitch from Pastore. And it was a little bit down and outside, and he went down and got it. And he has tremendous power to every single field, and I think Nick Osaski displayed his type of power also in the mold of Murphy's when he hit the grand slam the opposite way, and that's coming up in the 7th inning. Murphy, a 2-run home run to right center and way back. It didn't quite make it to the seats, but I guess it was at least a 400-foot home run. I would have to think it would have been. For Murphy, his 33rd of the year, RBIs number 109 and 110 to give Atlanta a 2-1 lead. And then Pastore settled down and got 3 straight. Chambliss on a 3-2 pitch at a ground ball first base to the pitcher. Then Ramirez popped one up to first, and Bruce Benedict fouled out to Dreesen. 2 runs, 2 hits. In the bottom of the 4th inning, Dreesen draws a leadoff walk against Niekro. He's forced out on an Osaski ground ball 4-6. Throw to first was late. But then Nick was caught stealing on a good throw from Benedict to the shortstop, Rafael Ramirez. It was a little bit high, but he got it down there in time. Osaski is nailed, the second time he's been caught stealing in 8 tries this year. Then Householder has a single to right field to extend his hitting streak to 9 straight games. And now he's hit safely in 14 of his last 17 and 21 of his last 29 games. That was a 2-out single to right, followed up by a bloop single into left field over the head of the shortstop by Ronnie Oster. So we got him at first and second, and the caught stealing on Osaski proves to be a big play. Otherwise, he would have been in. As Bill Ardello's next up, he had a check swing ground ball to shortstop. They turned that into a 6-4 force of Oster. Just did get him to end the inning. No runs, 2 hits, a walk, no errors, a caught stealing, 2 men left on base. Now we go to the top half of the 5th inning. Pastore's out there throwing against Glenn Hubbard. And for the second straight time, he swings at the first pitch. He had a single in the 3rd. This time he pops one up to shortstop. Phil Niekro then grounds out to shortstop. Brett Butler had a walk on a 3-2 delivery. Then Jerry Royster hit a fly ball to right field, and that ended the inning. No runs, no hits, and 1 left. In the bottom of the 5th inning, Frank Pastore leads off for the Reds, and he comes up with his 10th base hit of the year.
And the payoff pitch as he looks in for the sign from Benedict is swung on and drilled into left center field. Butler racing toward the alley, cannot get it. It's in the gap. Murphy will pick it up at the base of the wall, and Frank's at second base with a double.
There was an all-out attempt made by Brett Butler to flag that ball down in left center field, but to no avail. The ball went to the fence in left center for a 2-base hit. For Pastore, his 2nd double of the year, his 3rd extra base hit. He's had the 1 home run. And that gives him 10 hits in 52 at-bats, a 192 batting average on the year now for Pastore, as he doubles to left center to open up the 5th, but we cannot get him in. Milner draws a walk on a 3-2 pitch, and then with runners at first and second and Reedus at the plate, Pastore makes a base-running mistake here. He has picked off a second base. There was going to be a sacrifice put down by Reedus, but the pitch was low, and the ball was missed by Reedus, and catcher Benedict alertly fired down to Ramirez, and they had Pastore in the rundown between 2nd and 3rd, and they put him out 2-6-5. It goes down as a steal attempt, and that would be the first steal attempt for Pastore this year, and probably his first lifetime. Of course, it's not a straight steal. He really wasn't trying to steal. He was trying to get back to 2nd or get into 3rd safely. Either one would have been fine with Frank. But it just so happens he makes a dash to 3rd, so he's caught stealing here, 2-6-5, and that can really take you out of an inning, and it does. Because the next batter up draws up base on balls, and that's Gary Reedus on a 3-2 pitch. A lot of pitches thrown in this game by Niekro, as he usually does. Of course, he doesn't have the stress on his arm with throwing the knuckleball. And throwing that knuckleball for now 20 seasons, I guess, has prolonged his career to some point. If he had been throwing all the fastballs like Nolan Ryan over these last 20 years, he probably would have burned out earlier than this, but he's still going strong at age 44. He's out there struggling in the 5th, but luckily with the caught stealing, there's 1 out now with the bases loaded. Concepcion up, who had an earlier grand slam this year at Chicago. This time he lifts one to left field. Easy catch for Butler. And that is the 2nd out of the inning. Now the bases are not loaded. Excuse me, we've only got 2 on now. If the man had not been caught stealing Pastore, the bases would have been loaded, is what I should have said. But what with the man being taken out, Pastore on the pickoff, we've only got him at 1st and 2nd now, Milner and Reedus, the 2 speedsters, who combined this year for 72 stolen bases. And They are at first and second as Concepcion flies to left. And then Dreesen strikes out swinging to end the inning. His only official at bat in the ball game, and a key K for Mr. Niekro. In the fifth, no runs, 1 hit, a couple of walks, and no errors, 2 runners left on. And after 5 innings, it's a 2-1 Atlanta lead. In the top of the sixth, Pastore gets into 2-out difficulties after getting Washington on a ground ball to second and Murphy on a ground ball to shortstop. Chambliss had a base hit to right field, a solid line drive single on a 3-0 pitch. And then Ramirez walked on 4 straight pitches to put him at first and second for Benedict, who, for the second straight time, ends an inning with a foul pop to first base, as Dreesen flagged it down, his third straight inning ending out. As Benedict is retired in the sixth, and no runs, 1 hit, and 2 men left on. In the bottom half of the sixth, the Reds are retired almost 1-2-3. There's a double play in here, so the minimum of 3 is faced by Niekro. Osaski hit a line drive to left field, and then Householder had a base on balls on a 3-2 pitch. The count goes all the way out to 3-2 on about half the batters Niekro faces in this game. Then Oster bangs into a 1-6-3 double play to end the inning. The 166th time the Braves defense has turned to twin killing this year. I think that leads the league. That's 55 ahead of the Reds' 111. They did not turn 1 tonight. In the sixth, no runs, no hits, a walk, nobody is left on base. In the top half of the seventh inning, it's Pastore against Glenn Hubbard. It's the 3rd straight time he's led off an inning, and that makes sense because Benedict 3 straight times ended frames in the 2nd, 4th, and 6th, and so Hubbard leads off the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th, and 2 times he had a base hit to left field. This is the 3rd straight time he has swung at the first pitch. A first pitch single to left for Hubbard, his 2nd hit, and then he has moved up on a sacrifice like in the 3rd by Niekro. On a 2-strike delivery, Niekro got it out fair, and it's a 3-4 sack. Hubbard to second, 1 down, and again, the rally is foiled by the Reds pitcher Pastore. Pretty good job in this game. Butler hit a pop-up to the 3rd baseman, and then Royster hit a line drive to right field, caught by Householder, and that was the inning. No runs, 1 hit, 1 left. Pastore, to some degree, was living a charmed life in this ball game in some respects. We got the caught stealing on Hubbard there, or on Butler in the first inning when he was at second with nobody out, and here a bullet to right field ends this inning, and if that ball of Murphy's in the second had not been at somebody, he might have gone around to second or third. He hit that ball extremely hard. It might have gone through the fence. So several bolts against him, but some people happen to be standing there. Even more of a charmed life was lived through this 6th inning by Mr. Niekro, but it all catches up to him in the 7th inning. And now we're going to the bottom half of that 7th. Let's get to it here. The Reds send 8 men to the plate, and the first 2 go down also. The first 2 were retired by Niekro, and then the roof comes down. There were 2 pinch hitters retired. Lefty swinging Dallas Williams, a rookie, coming off the bench to bat for Bill Ardello. He hits a ground ball 4-3, and he's now hitless in 3 at-bats as a pinch hitter. And then Dwayne Walker bats for Pastore. He hits a fly ball to left field. He's still batting .385 as a pinch hitter, 15 out of 39. The most pinch hits for a Red since Jerry Lynch had 19 back in 1960 and 1961. Walker has 11 RBIs, the most by a Reds pinch hitter since Hal McRae 11 years ago. So 0 for 2 as pinch hitters in this inning and in this game. The Reds now show a .244 pinch hit average with 48 base hits and 5 homers and 34 RBIs, matching the team's total of runs batted in for pinch hitters all of last season. So with 2 out, none on, Milner starts the rally by walking, and then he steals a base. That's his only steal of the game, his 36th of the year to tie him with team leader Gary Redus. That is in attempt number 47 for Mills. And then Redus walks again on a 3-2 pitch. Then Dave Concepcion comes up with a base hit to left field, and this ties the game up at 2-2.
A 1-1. Davey swings and pulls it down the left field line. That's a base hit. Butler over to cut it off. On his way to third is Redus as Milner scores, and it's a tie ball game. Davey finally gets one. He lines it down in left field, and Butler, who can run well, was able to cut it off, or we could have very well have scored 2. But nevertheless, we tie it up, and Danny Dreesen's the batter.
That base hit by Concepcion stopped an 0 for 11 dry spell for Davey, and it's ironic. That's the second time over the last couple of weeks that Davey has broken out of a modest hitting slump with a key base hit. I think he had a game-winning hit at St. Louis on the last road trip that stopped an 0 for 16 streak, and now 0 for 11 is gone with that base hit. And Davey has been slumping to the plate of late still. He's only 4 for his last 41, And that would be, that's an .098 average in his last 41 at-bats. But this is a key single down the left field side. Reedus gets to third. Milner scores for Concepcion. RBI number 45 of the year. It ties it up at 2-2. There's 2 out. And, of course, it all starts with 2 out. Dreesen continues the inning with a 4-pitch base on balls. That loads the bases for Nick Osaski. Now there's a change of pitchers. Torrey had been out earlier in the inning, but kept him in to face Dreesen and walked him on 4 straight. His 3rd walk given to Dreesen in the game. And then right-handed reliever Steve Bedrosian comes in and faces Nick Osaski. And this is the big blow in the ballgame. Let's listen in with Joe Nuxhall.
Bases loaded, a 2-2 count to Osaski with 2 out. Now Bedrosian backs off the pitching rubber. They had Royster really back at third base. Bedrosian still standing behind the pitching rubber and looking down at the rubber. Now steps back on, and Osaski moves out of the batter's box. And the 2-2. That's swung on and hit well into left field, right field. Going back is Washington. And grand slam for Nick Osaski, and the Reds lead at 6-2. Osaski hits one out of here in deep right center field, almost the same spot that Dale Murphy hit his, and the Reds lead at 6-2. And listen to the crowd, 9,000 plus, but a lot of noise. For Osaski, his 11th home run of the year, and he now has 44 RBIs. Householder at the plate.
Well, that blow clings off the bases in a hurry. A grand slam to right center field by Nick Osaski. He goes the other way with that home run. And every home run but one in this ball game, 3 of the 4, went to the opposite field. Murphy twice, and now Osaski, a right-handed batter, going the other way against Steve Bedrosian. The 5th pitch that he threw in the game is deposited over the right center field fence for a home run. His first hit of the game, but boy, what a big one. 4 RBIs, numbers 41, 42, 43, and 44 for Osaski. Gives him his 11th home run of the year and his first Major League Grand Slam. That's the first Grand Slam hit by a Red at Riverfront Stadium since Danny Dreesen hit one off Jim Cott of the Cardinals back on Saturday, May 1st in 1982 in a 10-1 complete game Mario Soto victory. And now Osaski comes up with one, his first in the majors, the second hit by a Red this year. The first Grand Slam for the Reds was that aforementioned one by Dave Concepcion, and I had the situation incorrect there. He's up with 2 on instead of 3 in the 5th, but I still mentioned Davey had hit that home run with the bases loaded at Chicago back on May the 20th. He touched up another good reliever. Like tonight, Bedrosian is touched up by Osaski. Bill Campbell gave up one to Concepcion. That was a game-winning slam as well. And those last 3, going back to last year, including Dreesen's, have been big home runs in Reds victories. And this is the most Grand Slams hit by the Reds since 1981 when we hit this many, 2. One by Oster and one by George Foster in September at Philadelphia. So, Grand Slam number 2 for the Reds, and his first Major League Slam, Osaski cleans them off, 4 RBIs, and that puts us up to stay at 6-2 and a 5-run inning, all with 2 out, and he becomes the 5th straight man to reach base, and the walks really turned out to haunt Mr. Niekro. They did not earlier in the game, but they all catch up to him. Then Householder hits a fly ball to left field off of Bedrosian to end this inning, but the damage was done. 5 runs on just 2 hits. A run-scoring single and a Grand Slam homer. No errors, nobody left on, and 3 big walks in the inning, and they all came around to score. In the top half of the 8th inning, off of a new pitcher, Billy Shear, on the first pitch, pinch hitter Brad Kaminsk comes off the bench and lines a single into center field, more toward left center. And Kaminsk, playing against the Reds for the first time, just recently promoted. He was at AA and a little bit at AAA last year and almost at .400 at Richmond, and is up from their Richmond affiliate this season. That's Brad Kaminsk, K-O-M-M-I-N-S-K. Comes into play right field later. He's batting for Washington. Has a single to center and then comes around on a home run to right field, straightaway right this time, hit by Dale Murphy. Second hit of the game, second home run of the game, 34th home run of the year, RBIs number 111 and 112 to lead the National League. and he scores for the 124th time. That leads the circuit. What a season he's having. And now 8 homers in 9 games for Mr. Murph. And then Chambliss struck out swinging. Ramirez had a ground ball to short. A good play by Davey. Benedict a ground ball 5-3, so a good job by Scheer after the home run. Each pitcher used in this game gave up 1 home run. 2 runs, 2 hits, none left. Bottom of the 8th inning we go. Bedrosian's out there. He gets him 1-2-3. And he got Oster bunting on a 5-3 grounder, and then Trevino up for the first time at a fly ball to straightaway center, and then Scheer on the first pitch at a fly ball toward the left field foul line, flagged down by Brett Butler. Scheer is now 1 for 11 as a hitter this year, .091 as average with 1 single. In the top half of the 9th inning, Scheer does a good job here. He gets 1, 2, and 3. Actually 8, 9, and 1, but he gets him 1, 2, 3. Hubbard, a ground ball to shortstop. Good play behind second by Davey. I played that earlier. And then pinch hitter Terry Harper, an outfielder, batting for Bedrosian. He had a ground ball to third base. Saski made the play easily to first. Then pinch hitter Bob Watson with a .328 batting average this year and 6 home runs. He hits a line drive right at shortstop Concepcion to end the ball game and give the Reds their 3rd straight win. Watson is a pinch hitter, still has a good average with this over 1. 10 for 24 with a couple of home runs and several RBIs as a pinch hitter. Boy, he's done a good job filling in at first base when Chambliss was hurt, and just overall this year in any capacity, .328 batting average for Watt. No runs, no hits, nobody left on in the 9th inning. The Reds win it on the big grand slam by Saski, a 6-4 final. And now we go to the final statistics pages, each team using 13 players today, including 2 pitchers for each side. This is game number 145 for Atlanta, and its record is 80-65 now with the back-to-back losses, actually 3 straight now, including a loss on Sunday, I believe, to the Dodgers, so a .552 winning percentage for the Atlanta Braves. They're still 15 over. They're 4 back in second place in the West. The Reds gained a game. The Braves stayed the same because the Dodgers lost 1 to the Astros. I'll report that later. So 4 games back for the Braves. While for the Reds, this is game number 146, 1 more played than the Braves. A record now of 67-79, just 12 under, just 1 game behind the Giants now. A .459 winning percentage for the Reds, 17.5 back in last place in the West. With this win, the Reds have now won more games than they have since 1980. This being win number 67, that's the highest win count for the Reds since that 1980 season when they went 89, 73, and 1 tie. And then the next year they won 66 of 108 with the best record in baseball, of course, but that was in the split season. And last year, of course, winning just 61 and losing 101, so this is the best win total since 3 years ago. Interesting stat. Although, of course, there was a split season in there, which really is kind of the odd year. They would have won more than 67 that year had it not been for the strike, but nonetheless, this is the most wins since 80. For Atlanta, number 22, Brett Butler led off in left field. He was 1 out of 3 in this game. Also batting first, pinch hit Bob Watson, number 8, 0 for 1. He ended the game. Batting second at third base, number 1, Jerry Royster, 0 for 3. Batting third in right field, Claudell Washington, number 15, 1 for 3, scored once. And also hitting third, number 7, Brad Cummins, pinch hit right field, 1 for 1, he scored once. Batting fourth in center field, Dale Murphy, number 3. What a player he's been. 2 for 4, 2 homers, 2 runs, 4 RBIs. He knocked in all of the runs. Batting fifth at first base, Chris Chambliss, number 10, 1 for 3. Batting sixth at shortstop is Rafael Ramirez, number 16. He's turned into a fine hitter and is coming around at shortstop. 0 for 3 tonight, though. Batting seventh, the catcher, Bruce Benedict, number 20, 0 for 4. Batting eighth at second base, Glenn Hubbard, number 17, 2 out of 4. And batting ninth, Phil Niekro, pitcher, 0 for 1. Steve Bedrosian, pitcher, no time up. And pinch hitter Terry Harper, number 19, 0 for 1. The Braves had 8 hits and 31 at-bats with 4 runs and 4 RBIs without an error. For Cincinnati, number 20, Ed Milner led off in center field. He had a pretty good evening. He walked a couple of times. He was 1 for 2 officially, scored 2 of the Reds' runs, and knocked in 1. His batting average rises a point to .262. Batting second in left field is Gary Redus, number 2, 0 for 2 officially. With a couple of walks, a run scored, 1 error, no RBIs. His batting average drops 1 point to .251. He's hit in 10 of his last 17 games. Batting third at shortstop is David Concepcion, number 13, 1 for 3 on the day with a run and a game-tying RBI in that 7th inning. Davies' batting average is now .233. That stayed the same from game time. And Davey with 115 hits now on the season. Batting fourth at first base is Danny Dreesen, number 22, 0 for 1 officially with 3 walks, a run scored, no RBIs. Danny's batting .287, .2865, so he does not drop off. It just barely rounds up to his game time average of .287. 98 hits for him now. He's got a .427 slugging average. Batting fifth at third base is Nick Saski. He is number 12. Of course, he had the big hit. 1 hit, 4 at-bats, 1 run, 4 runs batted in. He did not strike out. He has struck out 96 times this year to lead the team, I believe. That's only since June the 19th also. Osaski's batting average goes down a point to 262. He's now got a 4-game hitting streak and has hit in 13 of his last 16. He tops the team in slugging average at 450. Hitting 6th in right field is Paul Householder, number 21, 1 out of 3. House now leads the team in doubles with 21. He bypassed Milner and Concepcion, and at the time, Milner and Concepcion were initially tied with 20. Householder had 8 doubles. He's had 13 since then without Milner or Davey picking up any more, so House is now first in doubles with 21. His batting average is now at 261, up a point with a 9-game hitting streak. That's the 3rd longest on the club this year. He's hit safely in 14 to 17 and 21 to 29. Slugging average 396. Hitting 7th at second base, Ronnie Oster, number 16, 1 out of 4. His batting average is now 259. That stayed the same. And he leads the team in hits with 131. He's had 505 at-bats on the year. Batting 8th is the catcher, Dan Bellardello, number 9. 0 for 2 for him, taken down for pinch hitter Dallas Williams, number 30, who was 0 for 1. And then catcher Alex Trevino, number 29, batting 8th, 0 for 1. Bellardello's batting average is 230, down a couple of points. And Williams, since being called up from AAA, is now 1 for 15. That's 067. And Trevino batting 220 with 33 base hits. He's had several hits lately. Batting 9th, pitcher Frank Pastore, 1 out of 2. 10 hits on the year now, a 192 average. Pinch hitter Dwayne Walker, number 26, 0 for 1. 385 as a pinch hitter, overall 240. Has hit in 4 of his last 6 games, 48 hits and 200 at-bats. And also Billy Shear pitch, 0 for 1. His 11th at-bat of the year. 27 at-bats for the Reds with 6 runs, 6 hits, and 6 RBIs and 1 error. And now a categorized summary of some statistics. There was 1 double, that was by Pastore, no triples, and 4 home runs, 2 by Dale Murphy, gives him 34 on the year. Eddie Milner had 1 for the Reds, his 8th of the year, and Nick Osaski, his 11th of the season. Game-winning RBI, 2nd straight for Nick Osaski, his 5th game winner of the season. Stolen base Milner, caught stealing, 3 players, Butler, Osaski, Pastore. Sacrifice bunts, Royster, and Niekro, the latter had a pair. Double plays, Atlanta won. Winning pitcher Pastore, he's 8-12. Losers Niekro, he's 10-9 on the year. The Reds had 6 runs, 6 hits, left 6. Atlanta, 4 runs, 8 hits, left 6. 1 error by the Reds' Aritas. The game time, 2 hours, 21 minutes. That's my clocking also, just a shade under 2:21. It would round up to that. And the attendance paid in total $9,222 to put the Reds at $1,043,000 plus for the home season's paid attendance here in '83. And now some pitching lines. For Atlanta, righty number 35, Phil Niekro, the knuckleball specialist, is the loser. He hasn't won a ball game since August the 24th. He has still won 8 of his last 10 decisions, however. The Blaine, Ohio native, 6 2/3 innings he went tonight, gave up 5 hits, 1 home run, the 15th he's permitted this year, 5 runs, all of them earned. He walked 9, none intentional, struck out 2. Then Steve Bedrosian, a right-hander, number 32, for the final 1 1/3. He allowed a hit, a home run, a run earned. No walks, no strikeouts. For Niekro, this was his 31st appearance and his 30th start. He has 2 complete games, one against the Reds back on June 26th, a 5-1 final when he gave up just 3 hits and 1 run in the full 9. He allowed only 1 walk and struck out 7 and delivered a wild pitch in that game. Now, that is 1 of 4 times he's gone out against the Reds this year. He has no shutouts this year, 43 lifetime shutouts and 226 complete games lifetime. His lifetime record is 267 and 229. In 183 innings this year, he's allowed 197 hits and 83 earned runs, has walked 95 and has struck out 117, a 4.08 ERA, up 10 notches from game time. Lifetime against the Reds, he's 29 and 34. This year, 2-1. Last year, 2-0. So this is the first time the Reds have beaten Niekro since the middle of the 1981 season. In 4 games started against the Reds this year, he has 1 complete game and a 3.64 ERA. 29 2/3 innings, 17 hits, 12 runs all earned, 16 walks, 17 strikeouts, and 5 home runs with a wild pitch. Back on opening day, April 4th at Riverfront, he was not involved in the 5-4 Reds win. Steve Bedrosian took that loss. 7 innings, a 4-hit, 4-run ball with 2 homers permitted by Niekro on opening day. Walked 2, struck out 2. And then that complete game at Cincinnati on June 26th, and then he went out at Atlanta against the Reds on July 1st and won a 5-2 game, going 7+ innings, giving up 2 runs, 5 hits with 2 homers, 4 walks, and 6 strikeouts. And for Steve Bedrosian, on the year, he's been in 65 games. He's given up a lot of big home runs. He gave up a game-winning grand slam to Mike Easler earlier this season. He has 19 saves, though, no starts, and 9-8 record. Or no starts that I know of, anyway. A 366 earned run average now, 108 in a third innings, 88 hits, 44 earned runs. He's walked 46 and has struck out 99. And for the Cincinnati Reds, right-hander Frank Pastore, number 35, is the winner. 8-12 now. He's matched his number of wins from last year when he was 8-13 at season's end. 7 innings, 6 hits, 2 runs, both earned, 1 home run, 3 walks, no strikeouts in this ball game. On the season now, he's been in 33 games, 26 as a starter. He has 3 complete games, 1 shutout, and no saves. 8 wins and a .498 earned run average, the lowest it's been in many months. 164 in a third innings, 182 hits allowed, 19 homers, 94 runs, 91 earned. He's walked 56 and has struck out 81, averaging just 3.1 walks per 9 innings. Then lefty Billy Shear, number 34, not quite eligible for the save. He went 2 innings, allowed 2 hits, 2 runs, both earned, 1 homer, no walks, 1 strikeout. ERA of 3.12 for Shear, 2-3 record with 9 saves and 66 relief outings. 6 homers given up and 2 in his last 3 games. 80 and 2/3 innings, 30 runs, 28 earned on 65 hits. He's walked 29 and has fanned 51. And now some stats on the Red starter Pastore against Atlanta. This stops a 6-game losing streak for Pastore versus that ball club. He had not won a ball game before tonight against the Braves since the next to the last day of the 1980 season, October 4th at Riverfront, a 3-2 final and a complete game over Doyle Alexander, who is now working for the Toronto Blue Jays. He's now 6-7 lifetime against Atlanta. That at one time was 5-1 against them. He was 4-0 against them in 1980 and had a big shutout against them in 79 in one of his first starts ever. In 81, 0-1 against them. This year, 1-3. Last year, 0-2 in 3 starts with a .442 ERA and 18 1/3 innings. This season, in 5 games, 4 starts against the Braves with no complete games and no saves. He has a .766 ERA, down from .998 at game time. 22 1/3 innings he's pitched against the Braves. He has given up 39 hits and 19 runs all earned, with 9 walks, 7 strikeouts, a couple of homers, and a wild pitch. Back on April 13th at Atlanta, he lost a 6-1 decision, giving up 9 hits, 5 runs, all earned in 5 innings with 2 walks, a strikeout, and a homer. Then on June 26th, that game the Negro beat us at Cincinnati, Pastore was on the losing end of the 5-1 score, giving up a dozen hits and 5 runs in 6 innings with 3 walks and a like number of Ks. Then on July 1st, also against Negro at Atlanta, a loss for Pastore, a 5-2 final, his 7th straight losing decision, the longest losing streak in the Bigs this season. 2 1/3 innings is all he managed to go, and again he gave up 5 runs, all earned, on 8 hits, with 1 walk, 1 strikeout. And then in a relief role on the 4th of July at Atlanta, he had a no decision and a 9-5 Braves win, giving up 2 hits, or make that 4 hits and 2 runs in 2 innings with 2 strikeouts. A few pieces of club information now for the Cincinnati Reds. Reds team batting average is at .239, a team slugging average of .356, and a club earned run average of .3.91, with 31 complete games for the staff, 5 shutout victories, and 27 saves. The Reds have hit 96 home runs this year, and they've struck homers in 6 of their last 7 games. And they've scored 549 runs this year. They're now over 500 once again since the All-Star game at 33-32, and show a record of 6-6 so far for 12 games in the month of September. And so that's a look at this ball game and some of these statistics. Reds winning, come from behind style with a 5-run 7th inning, a 6-4 final score. Let's listen in once again to the home runs called by Joe Nuxhall, 1 in the 3rd by Milner, and the big one in the 7th by Nick Osaski.
He throws a knuckler not. He didn't, and Miller hits it well to right field. Claudell Washington to the warning track. He's at the fence. He leaps. It's out of here. Eddie Milner, his 8th home run of the year, and it's a 1-0 ball game. And the 2-2. That swung on and hit well into left field, right field. Going back is Washington. And grand slam for Nick Osaski, and the Reds lead it 6-2.
Well, those 2 home runs hit by Milner and then Osaski provided Cincinnati with 5 out of its 6 runs in this ballgame, and that would have been enough to win it. In fact, the only run that was not driven in by a home run was Dave Concepcion's game-tying base hit in that 7th inning, and that's the only run in the ballgame that did not come in on the long ball. Of course, all 4 of Atlanta's runs scoring on the 2 2-run home runs by Dale Murphy. So an offensive exhibition with 4 home runs powered out of Riverfront Stadium this evening. The Reds end up on the long end because of that big hit you just heard, the Osaski grand slam, and a 6-4 Reds win. And now on to the scoreboard. A glance now at the standings through games of September the 14th. In the National League Eastern Division, it continues to be wild and woolly over there, with 4 teams separated by just 2.5 games. The Phillies right now are in first place, but that will change more than likely within the next few days because those teams are bouncing back and forth. The Phillies, Pirates, Expos, and Cardinals, the top four. Philadelphia in first right now after taking 2 from Montreal tonight. They swept them a doubleheader 9-5 and 5-0. So Philadelphia is 76 and 69, 1 game ahead of the Pirates and 1.5 in front of Montreal. And the Cardinals are only 2.5 back with 73 wins. Then the Cubs, then the Mets. In the West, it's the Dodgers at 84 and 61, 4 better off than Atlanta. The Astros are 7.5 back. The Padres 11.5. The Giants 16.5. They're 68 and 78. The Reds 67-79, just 1 game behind the Giants now, 17.5 behind. In the American League East, Baltimore is starting to pull away from the rest of the pack a little bit. Those Orioles never lose anymore. I think they've won 24 of their last 30 games, something like that. They're 33 over with the best record in the majors at .615 percentage, 88 and 55. That is 5.5 games better than Detroit, who owns the 3rd best record in baseball. The 2nd best goes to the White Sox in the AL West, the only team in that division over 500, and they are 25 over at 85 and 60, a .586 percentage, and they've got that thing sewn up. I think their magic number's down to about 2 or 3 to win the AL West, and it will be Chicago's first ever AL West championship. And so Tony La Russa's Sox playing some good ball. That's a terrible division, but still they're playing outstanding baseball, apparently against the clubs in the other division as well, with 85 wins and a 15.5 game lead over second-place Kansas City. The Rangers trail by 17.5. The rest of the East looks like this. Detroit in second, followed by the Yankees 7 back, Toronto, Milwaukee, Boston, and then Cleveland. Chicago, Kansas City, Texas, the top 3 in the West. Then the A's, Angels, Mariners, or make that Twins, and then the Mariners. On the bottom rung, Seattle, 55 and 89. The worst record in baseball, .382 percentage, and they are 29.5 back, the most of any team. And that is shades of the Reds' 1982 season. Well, remember last year about this time, the Reds and the Twins and the Mets were bobbing back and forth in the gutter of the major leagues. All 3 of those teams, I think, at one time had the worst record in baseball. The Reds did at one particular time last year in September, but this year's quite a bit different, quite a bit better than last season, and it's really better off when you compare it. When you compare the Reds' record to some of the other records over there in the American League. For instance, and this is really amazing, the Reds have a better record by 2 games than the California Angels. Can you believe that? The Reds a couple of games better, actually, I think 2.5 better, it looks like, than than California. Angels are in 5th place, 21 back at 64 and 81. Of course, they're playing under former Reds manager John McNamara, fired last July of '82, by former president Dick Wagner. That is really amazing. So you can see how better off this year is than last when the Reds have a better record than that ball club, California, that can play some good baseball, but this year they just have not done it. They've got Reggie Jackson, Rod Carew, and all those big stars, Brian Downing, Rick Burleson, Fred Lynn, but the Reds better than the Angels this year by 2.5 at this point, and that is really amazing. And the Reds not too far behind Oakland and also Texas, who was in first place for quite a long time. Scores today and tonight in the National League. The Cardinals beat the Mets 2-1. The Pirates 6, the Cubs 3. Phillies took 2 from Montreal. Astros over the Dodgers 4-2 in a late one. And the Padres beat the Giants 7-4. In the American League, there were 4 shutouts. One spun by Detroit's Glenn Abbott, a 5-0 final over Cleveland. Baltimore beat Boston 5-0. Minnesota over the White Sox 1-0. The Royals in 14 innings outlasted the Angels 1-0. And it was New York 4, Milwaukee 1, Texas 4, Oakland 2, and the Toronto Blue Jays beat the Mariners 4-3. And again, that Riverfront Stadium final in 2 hours and 21 minutes in front of 9,222 fans, the Reds 6 and the Braves 4. Until next time, so long.